Hello everybody, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting all 10 games of Game Week 10 predictions for the Premier League, and I do not look forward to facing Arsenal as a Newcastle fan. Anyways, there's a massive game between Bottle Jobs and Aston Villa. Wait a minute, no. Tottenham Hotspur, sorry. Easily mistaken. But after I predict that game and all the other games, I will then move on to my goal of Game Week 9, then see how I actually did in Game Week 9 to see how many points I actually got. We start at St James's Park at 12:30 PM on the Saturday. It's Newcastle United versus the Gunners. And Newcastle, we lose again. Alexander Isak, your decision making isn't fantastic. That one decision, if you passed it over to Joe Linton rather than going for goal yourself, we could have got a point. And you know what? Can Newcastle get something? Well, number one, we're home. That's a huge advantage that we need to take advantage of. And looking back at the Brighton game, other than the shooting, we were superb. But to be fair to Arsenal, they're back. They did really well against Liverpool. Maybe they deserved the 3 points because they were quite dominant for bits of that game, and they did very, very well to get a point. We have to get something here. Honestly, if we don't, and we don't win in the Carabao Cup, I'm honestly concerned for Eddie Howe's job. So Arsenal, you're not losing, especially against a team which haven't won in the last 5 games. But Arsenal, they didn't play amazing in the Champions League, nor did they play well against AFC Bournemouth. Does that mean we've actually got a chance? We have shown good signs against Brighton, Everton and Man City. So if we got it against Man City, then why can't we get it against Arsenal? Arsenal will dominate the game. They'll take the lead. Newcastle will be shaky like they were against Chelsea. But Arsenal are due a red card. And they're going to get another red card. And we'll draw this game 1-1. Call me biased, but come on the 2. We move to Anfield. It's Liverpool versus Brighton and Hove Albion. And Liverpool got yourself a 2-2 draw. Entertaining game, to be honest, against Arsenal. And honestly, the title race is up for grabs. They're no longer first after dropping points. But now you're facing Brighton, which bottled a 2-0 lead against last place Wolves. You did very well. You know, maybe you most probably deserved a win against Wolves. And you've got a great side. Danny Welbeck's in his prime. Was he now like 33? And he's absolutely killing it. But you're facing Liverpool. And Liverpool at Anfield are superb. They won it against Leicester. They didn't lose against Arsenal. The manager get a point. And now they're facing Brighton. I'm going to have to go Liverpool. They're home Liverpool. Look how well they've been doing under Arne Slot. They've been doing really, really well. So I cannot go for a Brighton point or 3 points. I'm going to have to go for Liverpool. I'm going for a very common scoreline. 2-1 to Liverpool as they face Brighton and Hove Albion. We move over to Portman Road. It's Ipswich Town versus Leicester City. And these two teams obviously were in the Championship. And back in the Championship, Leicester City did the double over Ipswich Town. Is it going to happen again? Well, I can definitely say Leicester look much better. I mean, you could just easily see that by looking at the league table. And they do look better, although they did lose it against Nottingham Forest. And deservedly, because Nottingham Forest was the better side. And Leicester City are definitely the favourites coming into this. But Ipswich, you fought against Brentford and they managed to score quite a lot of goals, but they conceded a lot. But you know what? If the wind was blowing in a different direction, maybe they could have hanged on to that 2-0 lead and at least get something from that game, like a point at least. Because it wasn't like an absolute thrashing, was it? It was 4-3. But they're facing Leicester, and I want to go Leicester, but they're at home Ipswich. And they're going to have to be getting a point. They can't lose again. They're at home. They're facing a much more winnable game than Brentford. Like I said in the last video, if Ipswich disappoint me again, I am not going to go for them to win this game. And I'm not. Leicester, you're going to be wanting to bounce back. But Ipswich, it's just something in the back of my mind. Because you're home. Because you're so desperate. I'm going to have to give you a draw. I'm going for a Desmond in this. 2-2 draw between Ipswich Town and Leicester. Ipswich, do not disappoint me again. We move over to the Vitality Stadium. It's AFC Bournemouth versus Manchester City. And Manchester City, they only won at 1-0 from an early Erling Haaland goal. And to be fair, they are doing pretty well in the Champions League. Just won at 5-0, which was an absolute crazy game. And going against Bournemouth, which had a late minute goal I mean, the tactical changes by Iraola to bring on Evanilson, superb. He was the one to make the movements, to get on top of that header and make the equaliser. Maybe Bournemouth didn't deserve a point, but that tactical change was very good by Iraola, showing what he can do. And you know what? Against Man City, I'm always tempted to go for a draw because they're missing Kevin De Bruyne, they're missing Rodrigo, and all their games have been so tight. And the likes of Newcastle United have gotten a point against them. And Southampton nearly did. Wolves nearly did. Fulham nearly did. So I'm going to go for a tight game, but I'm going to go logical here. I'm going to go for Man City. We all know why. They're an absolute great side. Fair play to you, Bournemouth. You're getting a goal. Sorry, it's against Man City, so I'm going to have to go for Man City common scoreline 2-1 to the away side, Manchester City. We move over to the St. Mary's. It's Southampton versus Everton. And Everton, the last 5 games, Everton, they're undefeated. And it feels like they're back like they were at the end of last season, which they did fantastic at the end of last season. Everton are back. They're not going down. They look better than Southampton. But Southampton did do well against Manchester City, because Russell Martin's possession-based football meant that Man City didn't have as much possession to actually do more with the ball, therefore being a lower scoring game. And they managed to get 42% possession, which is good and all, but you still lost it against Man City, and you bottled a 2-0 lead against Leicester, and you currently are in last place. And Everton, well, they're looking much better than you, but Everton, you've been very well defensively, only conceded 1 against Fulham, got a clean sheet against Newcastle, got a clean sheet against Ipswich Town, so I think it's going to be low scoring. I'll be shocked if any more than a goal goes in here, and I am going to go with the favourites, Everton, as they have been looking sensational in recent time, and Southampton, you're last. So I'm going for a scraping 1-0 away victory to Everton come the final whistle. We move to the City ground. It's Nottingham Forest versus West Ham United. Chris Wood, he's scoring for fun. I mean, he's not exactly amazing with skills. He's not exactly a flary player. But if you score the goals, you score the goals. And he's in his prime. Nottingham Forest, it looks like they're in their prime in recent time. And they're facing West Ham, which I think kind of scraped a win against Manchester United. A lot of controversy over penalties with VAR and all that. I'm a bit sceptical about the penalty decision and everything, but they still got a win over Manchester United. Even if it was a bit lucky, maybe you could say, it's a crucial 3 points. So I do not see them winning this, because I still don't think that was convincing enough to say that West Ham are back to fighting for Europe just yet. So I'm not going to go for them to win. But Nottingham Forest, they're good, they're home, they're not losing it. I'm going to go down the middle because I'm torn between it, you know. I'm torn between who's going to win this. So I'm just going to play it safe. I'm going to go for a draw. Both sides got wins at the weekend, and now they're coming here. I can't go for both sides to get another win. So I'm going to have to go down the middle, evenly split it to another 1-1 draw between Nottingham Forest and West Ham. And we move to the Molineux Stadium. It's Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Crystal Palace. This is such a hard game to predict. You would think it's easy. Crystal Palace, they've just taken down Tottenham Hotspur. Wolves, they were 2-0 down and were dominated by Brighton, but they've shown the fight that Wolves need to show, especially where they are in the league table. And they managed to make it 2-2. Amazing by Gary O'Neill. I mean, he was so happy. You could tell the happiness. And look at that, the manager's happy. And a point against a current top 6 contending side is sensational. And Wolves, they could have got a point against Man City as well. This is a sign. And if you look at their fixtures, okay, they have got what is probably their easiest fixtures of the season. So now it's time to kick in. Now the morale is high, and they're going to be able to get something in this game. But Crystal Palace, I think they've got a very strong side, and they did really well. They are always, in all their games this season, they've always been in the game and fighting and performing decently well, and finally it paid off. They finally got themselves a win. I was surprised it hasn't already happened, because some performances, they probably deserve 3 points or a point. But now they've got the win, I can't see them losing. Wolves, they've got a bit of momentum, I can't see them losing. Crystal Palace got their first win, they've got momentum, I can't see them losing. So I'm going to have to go down the middle with that logic. So I'm going to go down the middle for yet again my third 1-1 draw of the video as Wolves take on Crystal Palace. We move to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It is Tottenham Hotspur versus Aston Villa. And Tottenham Hotspur, they lost it against Crystal Palace 1-0. They didn't bottle it against Crystal Palace. They just played worse than Crystal Palace. So, Aston Villa, you're facing a Tottenham side which lost it against Crystal Palace. And Aston Villa, you're not going to lose that game because of that. And also because you're on top of the Champions League table. You're above them in the league table. You're much more consistent than them. And at the moment, you look better than them. But Tottenham are home. And home advantage is massive. So, I feel like I want to go down the middle. And you might be thinking to yourself, what I said about Aston Villa is much more impressive than Tottenham. But we have seen Aston Villa drop points against the likes of Ipswich Town because of the amount of games they have to play. Whilst Tottenham are a bit more used to it. And there's still a good side in there. With Ange Postecoglou playing his great attacking, free-flowing football. And with the inconsistency means that they could lose it against Crystal Palace, then randomly put a good performance against Aston Villa. They're not a terrible side. They've looked better more often than they've looked bad, in my opinion, Tottenham. So why not? They're home here. Why not get a point? But Aston Villa, they are definitely a better side than Tottenham at the moment. So if I would go for a winner, I would go for them. But like I said, I can't split the sides. Both sides score loads of goals. I think it's like 34 goals between them. So I'm going to go for a high-scoring draw for a 6-goal thriller between Spuds and Villa. We move to the last of the Sunday kickoffs. It's at Old Trafford. It's Manchester United versus Chelsea. And big news as Erik Ten Hag has now been sacked. And I can understand why. They're currently sitting in 14th place. But if they sacked him at the start of the season and got someone new in to rebuild before they've already implemented Erik Ten Hag's tactics and wishes, then Man United will look in a much better place. But at the moment, it's going to take a while for a new manager to gel in because they've sacked him partway through the season. But Man United, against West Ham, you did lose, but I thought you were unlucky. That penalty decision by VAR, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, it was a bit odd by VAR to give that one. So I think you were unlucky. And also, it wasn't just that decision. It's because of chances like Diego Dallo's one. Got it over the keeper and missed it. I don't know how he missed that. And then Garnacho hitting the crossbar. They had so many chances. They should have thrashed West Ham, but they didn't. It wasn't really Erik Ten Hag's fault in that game. It was the players, really. But overall, Man United are in a mess. Chelsea won in the Conference League. Chelsea won in the Premier League against Newcastle United. And looking at it, I think Chelsea can go and win the Conference League. So Chelsea are a team that can easily win the Conference League, and they're also a team that can hit European football, whilst Manchester United are closer to relegation than hitting European football at the moment. So I think it's obvious who I'm going for. Man United, you're in a mess. Chelsea, your squad depth's fantastic, and you look really, really good. So I'm going for Chelsea. Sort of comfortable as well. I'm going for a 3-1 away win to Chelsea. As Man United, what's going on? We move over to the Monday night fixture. It's a London derby at Craven Cottage between Fulham and Brentford. The mid-table London derby and Brentford. You scraped it against Ipswich Town, although you did do well against them. Fantastic tactically from Thomas Frank. I mean, did you see the goals that they did? It wasn't an absolute scream of goals, but it's the way the team worked together. The passes, the movement was amazing. But still, they conceded 3 goals, and there was concerns defensively. A few sloppy errors as well for Brentford, and going against a Fulham side which hasn't won in the last 3 games. Yeah, they are due a win, Fulham, because against Man City, against Aston Villa, those are 2 hard games. And against Man City, they could have easily got a point if Adama Traore could finish his beans. Honestly, if they did that well against Man City, they've done that well before the last 3 games, which they've had some struggles. And they're also at Craven Cottage. And it's a London derby. They're going to be up for it. And Brentford, you're going against a much harder side than Ipswich Town. And Brentford this season and last season, a lot of the time they take the lead, but they can't keep the lead. So I feel like they'll do the same. They'll be maybe 2-0 or 2-1 up. But then Fulham's quality with Emil Smith-Rowe, Alex Iwobi, Raul Jimenez, all of that will come together and Fulham will win this. But in a high-scoring affair, as every single Brentford game in recent time seems to be very exciting, like the Ipswich game. So I'm going for a 4-2 home win towards the Cottages. Now time to move on to my goal of Game Week 9. and I'm going to give it to Chris Wood. First of all, he wasn't even looking at the goal. He spanned so well, and it was a great finish. He is absolutely on fire, constantly scoring. But how did I do in Game Week 9 predictions? Here they are right here. As you can see, I got a total of 3 points, which is an interesting number. It's actually my favourite number. And it's terrible. It is honestly terrible. Let's just push that aside. Overall, that puts me on 57 points out of 180 points. What is going on? Football is random. Or maybe it's just my bad predictions. Either way, I'm going to punch you to my next video that you are going to watch. Toodle pip.